And I'm excited about today because I think it's truly going to be a mastermind. There's going to be different perspectives, opinions, and yet we're going to keep coming back to the written word that we're working on. Think and Grow Rich. And we are in, I think it's chapter number 11. It is. And the mystery of sex transmutation. And so, it led with definitely a bit of a spicy title, if you will. And I can't wait to hear what you guys think. And it's also kind of fun to me. Where is everybody today? Because this content was, a tough dive, a deep dive, maybe for a lot of you. That being said, as always, it is your room, especially since my internet seems to be a little sketchy today. So I would love to hear from you guys. Who wants to lead off here on chapter 11? Matt Voss, brother. Great to hear your voice. Welcome to the party.
Thank you. I'll step up. I thought it was interesting, especially since it's such a dated text. You don't think of our great-grandparents out there hustling for boyfriends and girlfriends, but that's really what this is referring to back then. And I think the main theme of the chapter is if we could all concentrate on our task at hand, as much as we tried as younger people, typically speaking, trying to meet up and get in contact with and have relationships with the other sex, we would be much better off, and we would be able to achieve the things we're trying to achieve much better. It's all a matter of concentration and putting the effort in. Russ is blank. He's frozen on my screen. I don't know if he is on all yours. That's all I had.
I think
what
he's having a hard time with his video, so he wants us just
it freezes when he sees it spinning. I think he's telling us it's gonna freeze.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I got from this, good morning, everyone. The thing that I got from all of this is I think that society is looking at this thing wrong, because most of society is looking at this from a strictly physical standpoint. And I'm still struggling to kind of fully make the connection as to how that drive directly, if that sexual drive actually impacts one's achievement drive. So I'm still trying to make that connection. I haven't made it yet. That transmutation word, I need to kind of suss that out a little bit. Maybe Russ or one of you guys can help me with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, client, the way I read it was thinking of myself as a young Marine in Hawaii in the early 90s, and how much effort we put into going out and finding girls. So, and if I could put that kind of effort into my making calls and doing my daily tasks and doing the list, all goals would be so much easier to achieve and get. It's almost like we have so many other things that are going on in our lives as adults and families, et cetera, that we seem to put our tasks at hand on the back burner. But if you can rewind your brain to being a 23-year-old kid and how much you strove to go out, and if we could take that same energy, transmutation of the energy that we put into doing that, how long did it take you to pick a cologne when you were 22, right? Versus how long does it take you to just make a phone call now, and gearing yourself up.
So those are like, that seems to be like two legs of it, but there's like a third leg missing somehow.
Isn't that
the
sixth sense?
I'm sorry, come again?
No, that's okay. Go ahead. The third leg.
No. You may have the answer. I'm just missing.
I don't have an answer. I was
I understand the initial drive. I understand the sexuality standpoint. It's just, how is that connected to the desire of moving in that direction to get that? I'm trying.
Carrie, keep going with the sixth sense, because that's exactly the direction I would go. So
okay.
On that.
Good.
Oh, so I was just going to say, so that's the sixth sense. The sixth sense is the part about like you're taking that, you're using that I was taking the sixth sense as the creativity and the if you want to say correct, like inspiration that's coming to you to do. Does that make sense? Is that where, does that sound right? I don't know if that sounds right.
No,
You
I
could probably do that better.
The reality of a sixth sense has been fairly well established. The sixth sense is the creative imagination. The faculty creative imagination is one which the majority of people never use during their entire lifetime. So what he's talking about is that sense of creativity and that focus, the intense drive, and the creative ways that you would go about to obtain the one thing once your body, the physicality ignited. Because, when you're a little kid, you played with boys and girls and you didn't, always wonder about, kissing them and whatnot. But there comes a point in time when a switch gets flipped biologically, which ignites us. And there's a time in our life where the biological light gets a little dim because, we get older and our body doesn't do biologically what it wants. So if you tap into that drive with deliberation, a relatively small number of people use with deliberation and purpose of forethought. The purpose of forethought, that's foreplay. The faculty of creative imagination. Those who use this faculty voluntarily and with understanding of its function are the genius. And so that genius, as I've heard other authors mention, is the power of tapping into faith and creativity and to be the ultimate problem solver. And man, if you wanted a girl and you knew she liked peas and you couldn't stand peas and she wanted a lunch of peas, by George, you were going to learn to eat peas, because you knew that was the one way, can I eat them frozen? Can I eat them mushed? Can I eat them in soup? You were going to get creative and find a way that you would find a way to like peas so that this girl might like you. And it's energy, which is from the infinite intelligence. Looks like Coach is back.
Yeah, and I've been around to the internet reset, heard you guys, and I love you bringing in this creative piece, and it's more than that. When you were in that pursuit, yes, creative, we were also focused, also did things that were not in our normal line of thinking or normal way.
Uh-oh. Oops.
Was I still coming through or did I break up? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
You broke up.
All right. So, and I'm back again. Very interesting playing with this internet today. So anyway, I was combining the creative with the focus, because we were absolutely focused on them and how we were going to achieve that, and the energy. That was a full-time project. It wasn't something we dabbled in. And I would even go to the level, as the content teaches, of being all in. When you were in that pursuit, where you were in that early dating, you were all in. And lastly, you never settled for a no when a yes was still possible. And you never worried about why not. You always focused on how to. Those two mantras of mine were absolutely part of that dating world. I loved reading this. Now, here's the fun part, guys. What about what comes after? Because we've all been there, and then we've all gotten into the marriage or into the relationship. What else do we have from the content on this topic?
I thought it was interesting that it said that most men, like, what does it say? When people seldom succeed before 40. I found that very interesting. I felt like that needed to be.
Well, why was it? What really, and again, this is in the 30s, so we have a longer lifespan now. And I don't know about you, but it sure seems to me that men mature a little later, if at all. So what was it about that 40 mark, guys?
That's when most men begin thinking about what they're going to leave behind. What are they doing? How are they impacting the world? What is their mark that they want to really make? What kind of impact are we going to have? I think that's probably one of them. What do y'all think about that?
I absolutely think that's a piece of it. I would challenge all of you as well. And again, I'm coming out of the content. These 10 mind stimuli. Sex was number 1. Love was number 2. The burning desire for fame, power, financial gain, money, legacy, number 3. And it's kind of fun that music's number 4, but let's take those 3. Number 1 is happening, especially when we are in that youthful exuberance of discovering it. And as we truly begin to understand this concept of love and that emotion of love versus sex, very different. That combination starts to work magic. I love in the content because it comes up over and over again. Love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving men to heights of superachievement. Yet the secret sauce is the combination of those 3. The road to genius consists of the development, control, and use of sex, love, and romance. So let's look at the process. Encourage the presence of these emotions as the dominating thoughts in one's mind, and discourage the presence of all other destructive emotions. So it's the balance of these 3, because control of the mind through the power of willpower is not difficult. Control comes from persistence and habit. When you're having, let's just stay in the primary relationship. When things aren't going well, when things aren't going your way, when your expectations aren't being met, are you still staying in love and romance? When the other person isn't, are you still working the willpower of love and romance? And how magical you play with all 3. And your mic is hot, and Nafritha, you're next.
All right. Sorry, not speaking from the book today, but this is such an interesting place, because I wonder, I have to question whether this is a divergence between women and men. So I got divorced and had $60,000 in closings within 5 months of that. It was the me show. It was the and show. Found myself a cute boy. Got diluted. It was the we show. I broke up with him last February. It's back to being the and show. And like I was saying earlier today, I have 2 third-party validation calls today. It's my show. I think that there's something biological in women that I just want to acknowledge in this room, that if I am focused on sex, love, and romance, I don't want to get out of bed, or like, let's crawl into bed and let's go in the kitchen. I'll cook you some dinner. And oh, your dirty laundry's on the floor. I'll take care of that too. And none of that leads to me being at my own highest and best. So I'm sort of in the opposite of that, where I'm transmuting all of that sex, love, romance back into myself. It's the me show, so that I can go function at that super high level. And then at that point, if some dude wants to slip into my margins when I've got a much more established, much more powerful and potent place, he can show up on Friday night. But otherwise, he should stay over there.
Well,
I love that. Oh my God.
They're like,
How come only the girls are cheering? How come only the
hold on a minute, guys, because I really want to stay on this. Okay. Because, and did you read the content? So you're playing into the section of what is transmutation, where you are absolutely taking that energy which still exists in knowing it's there. What I don't want you to do is dampen it and say, okay, it'll come. I want you to rechannel it. A teacher who has trained and directed the efforts of more than 30,000 salespeople made the astonishing discovery that the highly sexed are the most efficient salespeople. The explanation is the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is nothing more nor less than sex energy. So you're showing up with that energy, that passion, that ownership, and you're directing it that way. And that's kind of one of the keys in here on this transmutation piece. So Celeste, I saw you, I saw Carrie, I saw a client. Let's hit them. Celeste, go.
You transferred the word salesperson into what it reads. It really reads highly sexed men. It did not say women. It said men. And I'm hearing you, and I want to make sure you hear what you said.
This book was written in 1937.
I know. I get
Hold
it.
on. What do you know, Celeste?
I know that it was written in 1937.
And what does that mean? Why did I state that?
It was a misogynist environment.
I would say instead of misogynist, because that has negative connotations, that the research happened to be all men at that time.
Okay,
I agree. And this is the fun part I knew this conversation was going to have. I know there are divergent differences between men and women. I also know that I have experienced and seen women, when they are in pursuit of a man, have the same energy, the same focus. And so, yes, I changed that to salesperson in an attempt to say that this shift of the personal magnetism is still the same. That same level of focus, energy, pursuit that you put in when you met that cute guy. The key now is that you're balancing that and putting that energy in. Back to Matt, with this 40-year-old, back to Doug, the higher purpose. I believe a part of this shift at the 40 year in the book, and maybe later these days, is because the men also have discovered that it's not just all about the physical, that there needs to be more. Early on, they're that way. Now, Nafritha, I saw you come in hot. So hold that thought, because I said Carrie and client first, and you're right after him.
Okay, so I was so excited when Ann said all that, especially because she didn't read the book. So, but anyway, so all of those things. So I feel like it's so awesome that women have like come to a part where they can be Ann, right? We can be Ann and succeed. And then at the same time, later in the book, it talks about how, and I was surprised by this because I'd never really thought of things like this. So it said that some of those men were like very inspired, by their wives or girlfriends or whatever, and that was what helped them to get to the highest point. And I feel like that's, I guess if you go back probably to the Bible and
It
stuff
is
like
the
that,
maturity
exactly
thing,
what
though.
it's, about. And I just think that, I don't know, I really like it. I think it's cool, and I strive to be that modern woman that can do both.
Which you absolutely can. And by the way, in the later part of the chapter, as well as restating that, in fact, in the very end, I love this piece, so we'll cover it. It is the inherent desire of man to please a woman, which gives the woman the power to make or break a man. The woman who understands man's nature and tactfully caters to it need have no fear of competition from other women. The men, they are easily managed by the women of their choice. When things are clicking and going well, and a man will take a bullet for you, and at the same time, they also understand, as it says in here, most men will not admit that they are easily influenced by the women they prefer, because it's in their nature of the male to want to be recognized as the stronger of the species. Has anything changed since 1937? There's the ego, the desire to be recognized, yet the undercurrent of understanding, and we're seeing it now in lots of industries as well, especially in the real estate space, that the women have the power. So, client, you were up, then the free thing.
No, I did that by mistake. But I want to say this, though. It's funny how when you were reading that, I saw smirks on every single woman's face in this room. The guys are like,
No,
No,
we're, we're,
no,
we're looking like, the men are looking like grumps, and the women are like,
Don't
No,
misread
we
that.
weren't, we
Don't
weren't
misread
smirking in
that.
that way. We were
Okay.
agreeing.
You're misreading
Okay.
that.
let's
Okay, so
let's loop back. Let's let
Also,
Nefrita,
don't
let's let
mistake the
Nefrita go.
smirk
Hold
from
on,
being
hold
them.
on.
All
It's
also,
going to be spicy. I am muting you guys because I want to honor the people that came in with the mics to speak. Nefrita, the floor is yours.
So, what I was gonna say, right? What I got from this is not really a sex thing. I got to look past the sex thing, right? And yeah, like Coach brought into the room, it's true. We know, right? Women tend to mature a little bit faster than men, and I think that may lend to the fact that the woman's insight in a man's endeavor may have such a great impact simply because she may just be in a more mature state, whether to dissect the thing, create a plan, or whatever it may be. So I don't really think it's a sex thing, right? What I got from this about the sex transmutation was the power, the energy, and it talks about, well, I won't say the page, right, because everybody's page is different, but my book, page 207, the emotion of sex is an irresistible force against which there can be no such opposition as an immovable body. When driven by this emotion, men or women become gifted with a superpower for action. So that, right, resonated with superpower. Then on page 224, there is no other road to genius than through voluntary effort. That is another part of it, right? And then 213, it says, the major difference between the genius and the ordinary crank inventor may be found in the fact that the genius works through his or her faculty of creative imagination, while the crank knows nothing of this faculty. So for me, what I got was the love, or that sex has a power behind it. There's a force behind it, and it becomes supernatural power. And unfortunately, it kind of took me to a space where I remember in high school, there were two females that were murdered by their significant other. Now, of course, we know there were other factors, probably that, like drugs, right? And a lot of home violence, all types of stuff that played into that. But that instantly made me think of that. And then, of course, I went to Google. In 2021, 34% of female murder victims were killed by an intimate partner, while 6% of male was murdered by an intimate partner. So once again, not to point out that men are, but just to say that this is a real thing, right? So a lot of times, and like Ann brought into the room, we've all been there, where we completely, like, the logic mind is taken off, and we're in imagination world, creative world. Even when a person is telling you they don't want to be with you, in your mind you're like, no, they do, they want me, they just don't know it yet, right? So it's almost like that delusion that is like that creativity, right? It's something about it that's what I got. It's a superpower. It forces you to think outside of logic. And that's what this whole book is about, that faith, right? How do we tap into our genius? And like they use the word voluntary self-effort, which we've been talking about, superpower, right? And then that the genius. And then the last part, there was a part that talks about mixing chemicals. It was basically saying how you can have chemicals and by themselves, oh, they don't do anything. It's like, it's just different elements, right? But when you mix them together, it can be deadly. So for me, it was just the power that comes behind that love energy, not really a sex thing.
Well, let's hit these 10 mind stimuli, because I suspect you might see in people's negative behavior, they're probably running from one of the two negative mind stimuli on this list of 10, the last two, either fear or narcotics and alcohol. I want to take you back a couple of months when we were talking about the power of the mind, the attitude, the energy. And one of my favorite things just in my mind, everybody is doing what they believe is right in the moment. In the moment of decision, they believe it's the right decision, even if we all know it's not. So it's interesting to look, what are the stimuli? What's going on in those worlds, as you guys have brought up? That being said, these positive stimuli, and I'm going to come back again to this kind of quadrant of 3, and I almost like the full quadrant of 4. Sex, love, burning desire for something bigger, as Doug said, legacy, and music. How well could you leverage those? Caesar, I saw your mic come hot, and it looks like we still have a lot of conversation and content, so we may roll this tomorrow. Caesar, floor is yours.
I just want to hit that on the music part and the burning desire. My 2-year-old, since she was born, she puts some music on and it gets her going. And I seem to be that same way as well. Like, I used to play the drums and anything, I'm attracted to the beat, right? Because anything that gets me going. So that like hit home when like that burning desire as well. I also want to point the other point I want to put in, the burning desire for fame, power, or financial gain is a great burning desire. But there's also, I think we mentioned this before, we should recognize what's the real deep meaning behind the money or the power or the financial gain. Because I was just listening to someone, I forget, a podcast, and he received all this financial gain. He had the house, he had the cars, and he still felt not happy. And it's because again, those things don't create happiness. So like, if you're not happy right now in the moment with what you currently have, it's not going to change if you have an extra more $1 million or more cars or whatever the case may be. So I just want to hit that music part. For me, it's a get going thing. I don't know if it's in the stimuli, if it's naturally, because I see it in my little 2-year-old. So I want to hit the point of that, how much that does get your mind stimulated.
So here's the fun part, guys. It's 11:31 and we have 30 minutes. I know there's still a lot of other conversations to be had on this that are on your guys' minds, on your hearts. Let's roll this again in tomorrow. Let's stay in this chapter because there's so much passion around it. And here's the only things I want to put in the room for you guys as you think about tomorrow. Reread the chapter, and is what you're feeling. And remember the point far cycle, your programming, life experiences, teaching, training, whatever leads to your thoughts lead to your emotions are what trigger the actions give you results, which come back as more programming. Are the thoughts and feelings serving you to take you to the goals and desires of your entire success wheel? Are they really getting you there? And are you open-minded, if not, to just exploring, testing, trying on some different programming, some different inner conversation to maybe break through some of those barriers?